Hey, welcome back to the show. You're listening to Jai Long. This is the Make Your Break podcast. Right now, you're watching it on YouTube, and I'm really excited to dive into imposter syndrome and the notion around fake it until you make it. Now, for years, I've heard a lot of people talk about fake it till you make it, and there is some pros and cons to that for ourselves and for our clients. And I kind of want to demystify a few things, what it means to fake it till you make it, and how it can negatively impact other people, and how we should actually approach it. I also want to dive into imposter syndrome, what that looks like, the 5 different types of imposter syndrome, and how we can overcome imposter syndrome, or not overcome it, but manage it and get back to taking action. So if you do want to listen to the podcast, don't forget this show is on Apple, Spotify, everywhere where you stream podcasts. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have tons more episodes here, right here on YouTube. And let's get into today's show. You are listening to Jai Long, and this is Make Your Break. Hey, Make Your Breaker. Today, I want to talk about imposter syndrome and the notion around fake it till you make it. You've probably heard this a lot of times. People talk about fake it till you make it, and it's being thrown around. There's probably not too much framework to it. But what does it even mean? And is it a good idea? I've heard a lot of educators talk about it. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. And in fact, I've talked about it a lot as well. And I haven't really dove into actually demystifying or giving you some steps or anything else around faking it till you make it. So the first question is it a good idea? I'd love to answer that today. And I think there's some pros and there's some cons. And there's a few things that I think you probably haven't thought about if that's your strategy that you're going with right now with your creative business. I do think that vulnerability and transparency are 2 very important things that you got to have in business, and sometimes fake it till you make it goes against those, and it can make us show up inauthentic, which can lead to imposter syndrome. So today I also want to talk about imposter syndrome. Studies have shown, there's studies by Gail Matthews, KMPG, Kajabi, and Dropbox School of Life found that around 70 to 84% of people experience imposter syndrome. So I want to dive into the different types of imposter syndrome, how that looks for you, and maybe things that you haven't really thought about when it comes to imposter syndrome. So let me know if you ever want to send me a DM on Instagram. If anything on this resonates with you, my Instagram is @jailong.co. And don't forget, I'm giving away a one-on-one mentoring session each month to one lucky winner that leaves this podcast a review. It's the only way that we grow, and I'd love to see your words on there. It keeps me happy, and it also allows other people to find the show. So go ahead and do that, and let's get into today's juicy episode. All right, now we're going to start the show. So first up, I'd love to talk about imposter syndrome. There's a great quote by Dr. Valerie Young. It says, everyone loses when bright people play small. And I actually think everyone loses when they actually are an imposter. We have 2 different types of imposters. We have the ones that are suffering from imposter syndrome, but they're actually great minds and they are incredible people. And then we have the other side where there's imposters out there that are actually imposters, and they are doing sometimes more harm than good, and we're going to dive into that. Experts on the subject, Dr. Valerie Young, has categorized into a few subcategories when it comes to imposter syndrome. So she's got the perfectionist, the superwoman or the superman, the natural genius, the soloist, and the expert. So in her book, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, Why Capable People Suffer from Imposter Syndrome and How to Thrive in Spite of it, Dr. Young builds on decades of research, study, and feelings among high achievers. So I want to dive into just her framework to start off with, because I think this will really paint the picture on imposter syndrome and will sort of put you into a space of understanding your imposter syndrome. So number 1's the perfectionist. Your characteristics might be, you set extremely high expectations for yourself, often feeling disappointed even when you meet 99% of your goals. You might feel failure if something is not perfect. So if you don't achieve perfection, you failed. Now, if this is you, let me know. The next is superwoman or superman. So the characteristic feels like you need to work harder than everyone else to prove your worth. Often you feel stressed, you feel overworked, and you're afraid to stop working for fear of being exposed as a fraud. Your thoughts generally are, should I be able to handle more than everybody else? Well, I should be able to handle more than everybody else. Next up is the natural genius. So the natural genius, the characteristics is believes they should understand new information or master new skills easily and quickly. They might feel crushed or ashamed if they don't succeed in their first try. Now, your thoughts might be, if I were really competent, this would not be so hard. Next up is the soloist, number 4. Characteristics are prefers to work alone and often rejects help or support from others. They see asking for help a sign of weakness or incompetence. So your thoughts might be, I should be able to do all this myself. I don't need any help. Next up is the expert. Characteristics. Never feels knowledgeable or competent enough, constantly seeking additional certifications or training to improve their skills. They fear being exposed as inexperienced or unknowledgeable. And the thoughts are, I really should know everything. So understanding yourself and where you are on that spectrum of imposter syndrome, I think is really important. And there is one in here that I kind of want to talk about today, actually. And it's the next one as being the imposter. Funny enough, I have found over in my career, and I'm only speaking from experience here. I'm not a doctor or psychologist or anything like this. I'm speaking from my experience of being around a lot of successful people as well, and people that sort of travel the fake it till you make it path, and then when they're getting somewhere. But what I've noticed over the years is you do get these 5 categories of people, but sometimes you get an imposter that's actually an imposter as well. So it's somebody that will show up and they will say that they can do something even though they can't do something, or they don't have the ability to do something. And they do this because they've heard other people say, you should fake it till you make it, and then work out how to swim from there. So jump into the deep end without knowing how to swim, and then quickly learn how to swim. Now, there's pros and cons to that. There is a lot of pros and cons to that. I would say a lot of drawbacks to the old notion of fake it till you make it is you're going to risk burning out. So that's a huge one because you're constantly pretending to be competent when you're not. You're constantly putting up a front. You're constantly being someone else. You're constantly worried that someone's going to find out that you actually don't know how to swim. It can be really exhausting, and it can lead to burnout when you're constantly in that fight or flight mode of trying to be somebody that maybe you're not. The next is you're being inauthentic. So I think, fake it till you make it can be very negative because you might be lying to somebody. Maybe they're white lies, but being inauthentic to yourself and to your clients and to the people around you and your team and stuff over time can build to feelings of dishonesty and imposter syndrome. So maybe you might get imposter syndrome because it all comes from that, you actually being inauthentic. Now, next is neglecting genuine improvements. So focusing too much on appearance rather than actually growth. And it means it can hinder your growth because you're no longer seeking to grow. You are trying to fake it till you make it. So you're trying to seem like you know everything or you know what you're doing. So you don't ask the right questions anymore. And I think this is a really negative thing. I'm going to dive into more of this in a moment, but it's something to really think about on that. Like if you are actually hiding your skills and you're neglecting to actually level up and to learn something, it's going to be really hard for you to progress and actually make it, okay? So benefits to fake it till you make it. So a lot of benefits are you can get somewhere quickly, of course. So you might be able to hustle your way into somewhere and you're going to work out the details. That's a positive thing and it does work really well. I've done it many times myself. I'm going to talk about my framework though, so it helps. It can boost your confidence. So just acting as if you belong to a group of people or you belong to the thing that you're creating can really build your self-confidence, which can improve on performance, and it can open up opportunities as well. Like people see you as a yes person, and it can open up a lot of opportunities, which is really cool. It can promote positive thinking. So instead of being always on the negative and saying all the things you can't do, you start searching for the things that you can do and the value that you can bring. So that is a huge positive of fake it till you make it. Always searching for the bright side and the cup half full and looking for that positive outcome. And I think that's a really important thing to think about when it comes to this as well. So I actually want to share a few stories, and then I want to give you my approach on fake it till you make it so you don't feel like an imposter and you can avoid a lot of imposter syndromes from this. Before we do, I actually want to show you how this has shown up lately and what sparked me to create this episode. So over the last, let's say 20 years I've been an entrepreneur, 17 years I've been an entrepreneur. There's been many times when I've done business with people and they have tried to fake it till you make it, but they didn't make it. And all they did was fake it. And the person that lost wasn't them. Well, maybe it was, but it was actually me, hiring different people. Now, what I don't ever want to see, and this is a big negative thing where I feel like everybody loses, like you lose, your clients lose, other creatives lose, is when you start lying to other people because you're trying to make it that's in your industry, for instance. Now, I've had this a lot where I put a job out into the world and I'll say hey, looking for a designer, or I'm looking for an editor, or I'm looking for a videographer, or I'm looking for, whoever it is. And people will say that they're more competent than they are, and people will overcompensate like that. And you can tell they're trying to fake it till you make it. But what happens is I end up wasting my time with the creative. I lose a lot of money along the way, and then I have a negative, a negative thought when it comes to hiring other creatives. And one of the most important things for me is helping other people make their break and spending my money towards other creatives. I love, spending money towards videographers that are talented, or editors that are talented, or copywriters, or designers, or photographers, whoever it is. I always just think I'm a creative myself. And I remember the days when I was hustling and I wanted, I needed to make ends meet. And I'm in a position now where I can hire so many different creatives. And in fact, over the last 12 months, I've spent over 7 figures paying for models, videographers, photographers, designers, doing so many different things. So I feel like with our business, we're able to give back in so many different ways, which means I work with a lot of different people, a lot of different subcontractors, a lot of different creatives. And it means it doesn't always work out. And sometimes this problem highlights more for me than anybody else, because I do go through a volume of people and I get to see how they work and the way that they move through the world. So the first one for me that I want to share is I actually engaged with a videographer a couple months ago to shoot a project that I was working on. And we went backwards and forwards and we talked about what we can do. I got on a call on with that person, and they promised me the world. They told me all the things they can do and how capable they are and everything. Told me their price, and I told them my budget, and then they put a little bit more on top of that price and said, look, I'll feel more valued if it was this much. I didn't argue with that. I said, yep, no problem. And to make them feel more valued, I asked them, can I pay you a 50% deposit straight up, cash, so that way you're already flying before you even do any work with us. And they were obviously really happy with that. And then the day came when we had to do some work together. And of course, my high hopes of all the project and the things that this person told me, I was really excited about this project. And then once they started working, and then I started seeing some finished results, final product stuff, it wasn't to the standard to what I thought it would be at that price range, and for what I was doing and for what they educated me on. Basically, this person was trying to fake it till they make it, and they wanted to become a documentary videographer, which was different to what they usually did, but what they were delivering was what they usually did. So it was really heartbreaking for me, and we lost, I think it's 90% off that deposit, even though they didn't deliver anything or didn't do much work. And not only did they fake it till you make it, not to deliver on that, they didn't even know the basics of storytelling and a whole bunch of things, right? And then from there, hours of trying to get through to them, they took so much money from us, and it basically derailed our whole project, and put things into a tailspin, and it's left a negative result on myself and the industry and everyone that that knows what happened and everyone we talk to. And the big issue too is this person And I'm not going to name names or anything. Like it's nothing like that. We had to move through it real quick. But this person is an educator and perceived as an industry leader and all that kind of stuff. So you never know who it's going to be or how it comes around. And sometimes you build trust on like seeing where they are in the industry or seeing how much, they show up and they talk about themselves and stuff. And you don't know sometimes that people are just trying to fake it till they make it. And sometimes they don't make it. And when I called them out that, all the things that we weren't happy with, yeah, like we lost all that money, and to me, it's just too much energy to go in and try and like fight for that when I've got to continue on with the project and continue on with my team and stuff. But obviously, it's a disappointment for everybody involved. And yeah, I think it's like honestly, I lost, they lost. Well, they took a lot of our money, but they lost. All our clients lose, like all the people that benefit from our work and stuff. My staff loses, like literally everybody. And, one person gains from it. And it's just, to me, it's like the most heartbreaking thing to run a business like that. Now, next up was a designer we actually engaged with last year. And I was following them on social media for a long time. And then they actually wrote me an email and said, Jai, I would love to take over your social media account and start doing some like carousels and reels for you. We've got editors and we've got designers and we've got everybody. And I was really excited about this. And they said, like, look, you just have to sign a 3-month plan. And then from there, like pay up front 3 months. And then from there, we'll take over everything. And I've seen everything on their social media account, loved it all, fully trusted them, seen the clients that they had and everything. So we went for it. And then the first round of designs that we got back, it was clear to me because I've been in the design game for a long time and my partner is a designer and I've designed a lot of my own stuff. So I obsess over, literally everything, fonts, layout, like everything. And the first round of stuff we got back, it was clearly not done by a designer, and so I wrote back to him, said like, this is obviously not to standard. I know you don't have too many clients right now, that's why you reached out, and you said that you're a big agency and you've got all these people, but this is not actually done by a designer. So they went back and then they come back with some changes and stuff, and again, not done by a designer. Or maybe it was, maybe someone in their team is faking it till they make it. I don't know. But we went back a few times, and then at the end of it, I had to part ways and said, sorry, like we cannot post these things, and this is not to, like if I showed anybody, this is not a design. This is not to any design, anything. Unfortunately, that person said, well, you've already paid 3 months up front and you get no refunds on that. And so this is how a lot of people that make it, fake it till you make it, this is how they make their money too. You're probably wondering how they have a sustainable business. We'll do that lots of times and you're probably making a lot of money. Now, this is really disappointing for me because, and the reason why I'm sharing this is not because there's nothing negative that I feel towards these people that run their businesses like this. I would want you to avoid this. And for me, I want you to avoid being that person and to hire these people. It's heartbreaking to hire other creatives and have other creatives not being transparent with where they're at and their skills and what they can actually do, and then actually taking your hard-earned money. And a lot of us, we just don't have that much money that we can test multiple agencies or multiple designers or multiple videographers or multiple editors or whatever it is. And yeah, it's really, really heartbreaking. I had another instance where I hired a photographer and they showed me some of their portfolio and stuff. Love their work. And then when they actually went and took the photos, I realized really quickly that either the first portfolio wasn't their work or it was really controlled with like a styled shoot and perfect lighting and the perfect everything, or it was like maybe it was someone else's styled shoot and they just jumped in and got some photos or whatever it was. But when I actually got back their photos, it was very clear that they weren't actually a photographer just by looking at the settings and the composition and the framing and everything else. Like, I'm a photographer, man. Like I can see these things. And it's really disappointing because you hire somebody and you got big high hopes and you pay the deposit and you're ready to go. And I always make sure I pay fairly to everybody. Like, I'm never trying to ask for discounts or anything. And just seeing that, it's like, man, if somebody else got this, they wouldn't know how to navigate through this. So the person that fails or the person that loses is this person's clients and also the whole industry, the whole photography industry. Because if I hire this person, a few other people hire them, and I'm not in the photography industry, I start thinking like, you know what, I could do it better myself on an iPhone. I've hired a professional photographer and I wasn't that great. And it starts giving a bad results or a bad taste in the mouth for everybody involved, but especially for all the creatives. And I just don't think we want to do that. We want to protect our industries by creating great work, so we get more work, and you start expanding the demand for what we're doing, not doing the opposite. Now, next up, actually interesting enough, is some educators. I've had some educators come to me that were trying to fake it till you make it, and they slipped through, and I don't know how, but they talked their way through. They got all the 5 stars, and they got a podcast, and they got everything. And I'm like, oh yeah, this person's legit. And then I get them on the podcast, because they asked to get on my podcast, and we do an interview. And honest to God, they're telling me they got all these clients and stuff, but when I ask them some basic questions about business or about the strategy that they're actually teaching, when I go off their script, they actually have no idea like what they're talking about, which is mind-blowing. But it makes me realize, in the education industry, there is so many people out there that are faking it till you make it. And they tell everyone, like, I had a successful business, 4 years ago, and I did this and I did that. But really, like, none of it's actually true. And so it's up to us to make sure we go through and we're not becoming a victim of the fake it till you make it scam. And we actually find out, like, have they been through an actual time in business? Did they go through recessions? Have they gone through bust and booms? Have they gone through negative reviews? Have they actually done the work and made the money that they're promising that they can make you? All this kind of stuff. I think this is really important. Or did they just, get someone else's course, rip it, make a podcast, sell the same course? And you see this over and over and over. And of course, you hope that they don't last forever and spread a lot of negative energy all the way through a whole industry, but you just never know. And what happens is, as a result of it, a lot of people that come and sign up to my coaching and stuff, they always say, Jai, I was actually with a coach and it was no good, and then they wouldn't give me a refund, and then and everyone's hating it, and I didn't learn anything, and I just lost everything, and now I'm even worse than I was before. How can I trust you with my money and with the strategies that you have? And so then all of a sudden you're the one that loses because the other person made their clients lose. So I don't like that strategy when it comes to this kind of stuff, and I think it's really important that we uphold some integrity and fall in love with our craft again, like whatever it is. The last one is tradies, man. I'm actually a tradie, and I was an electrician, and not just too long ago I had somebody come out and fix an appliance of mine. He was an electrician, and honestly, he didn't fix it, and he also didn't know what he was doing. But the funny thing is, just even the words that he was saying and stuff, I knew he didn't know what he was talking about. And so straight away, I'm like, oh my God, like this person, do they even have a license? I looked them up and they didn't actually have a license. They were faking it till you make it. And again, then I don't trust tradies. I start thinking, the mechanic. I don't start trusting the mechanic. I don't trust all these people. And things can go into a negative direction. Now, why am I sharing all these stories? Well, first up, if you ever have been a victim of the fake it till you make it, I don't want to say scam, but like mindset, I do feel like sometimes you may have lost in some way. And I know a lot of you have. I have in a lot of different ways. And I don't want it to discourage you or discourage you from doing, fake it till you make it. I want to give you a new way to fake it till you make it, okay? Because I don't want to bring anyone down and say like, well, when you first start out, you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that, because you got to do whatever you have to do to make it work. But when you do it, you got to do it with integrity, and you got to do it with sustainability in mind. Like, can you sustain this for a long time? Can you show up and serve and know that this client is going to be a repeat customer, or they're going to refer you to somebody else, or they're going to give you a 5-star, and you're actually bringing up an industry and you're creating more demand and you're proud of the stuff that you're putting out there? Or are you trying to cut corners and fake it till you make it, and then all of a sudden it's all terrible? Okay. So here's my approach. This is called the Jai's approach to fake it till you make it. And I'm really glad that I get to speak to this today. And I know maybe some people out there won't agree with me, and some will. Just get into my DMs and let me know. Maybe share it on social media and let people know, what do you think about this whole thing? For me, number one, if you want to fake it till you make it, we need to embrace vulnerability. It's okay to acknowledge your limitations and seek help when needed. Being honest about where you need to grow can lead to genuine improvement. Being transparent, like literally being transparent. Throughout my life, this has worked so well. I have literally faked it till I make it all the way. Don't get me wrong. But the way that I do it is I'm transparent with me faking it till I make it. So I'll go to my clients. I remember the first time I shot a wedding, and I'd say to them, hey, I've actually never shot a wedding before. I don't have a track record. I have never delivered before. I haven't done this and I haven't done that. But I know I work really hard. I'm resourceful. I'm going to be able to work it out. And I know you're going to love the final product. If you're willing to take a chance on me, let's do this. Okay. So I will talk straight away like that. And that way I don't have imposter syndrome, because I'm not trying to be someone that I am not. I'm not trying to fake it. I'm not trying to hide, my lack of portfolio or lack of skill. I am putting it all out on the table and then putting it to them. The reason why you're paying $500 for me to shoot your wedding is because I don't have a track record. And if you're happy with that, you can save some money. I can build my portfolio. How's that sound? Okay, so now I'm talking them through the process. So if I was a designer, and I was going to charge me 3 months up front, and if you're out there and you're trying to fake it till you make it, the way that I would do that, instead of trying to charge people 3 months up front, I would probably say hey, I'm going to give you 2 weeks for free. I haven't actually got too many designers on hand. We haven't done this many times, and I'd love to give you 2 weeks for free, get as much feedback as we can. From there, I'm going to optimize it, change it to what it is that you need. And then after that, this is how much I charge per 3 months. How does that sound? And then from there, it sets the stage. I understand now what your limitations are. I understand what it is that you're trying to do. And for me, am I happy or not happy with that? And a lot of the times I am happy. I actually probably find out that maybe I'm going to get a discount, and that's why I'm paying a little bit less. So now it's all on the table, and I don't have to try and work out this person, because this person is stressed because they don't want to be found out that they're actually an imposter. Throughout my life, actually, I want to give you one more story on that. When I finished my apprenticeship as an electrician, I quit my job, and I didn't get my license straight away. And my old boss, when I did my apprenticeship, he withheld my license. And so he was trying to blackmail me to come back and do some work for him and stuff. And he was worried that I was going to take all these clients. And it was a big mess, right? Anyway, I was stuck in this limbo situation where I was a fully qualified electrician, but I didn't have a license. So I wasn't allowed to, I couldn't go get paid how much that I'm worth without that license. And I remember I was looking on seek.com, whatever it was, to go and find a job. And I found a job that was perfect for me. And it was for a fully qualified electrician is what they wanted. They said all the different tickets that they wanted, the qualifications, the education, everything. I wrote them an email. I remember this email like it was yesterday. And I wrote back, and I said, look, I want to apply for this. My situation is right now, I finished my apprenticeship and I do not have a license. But I can tell you one thing. Oh, I also said, I do not have a resume. I do not have a cover letter. And to be honest, I'm too busy to make any of those things. But I can tell you one thing. Your inbox is going to be full of people that are overqualified with the best resumes that you probably can't even trust. I'm here to tell you that I'm ready to work. I know how hard I work, and I know you're not going to be disappointed when you have me rocking up to the job site. Okay, that guy rang me up 5 minutes later. And he literally said, hey, Jai, we have 300 emails to go through, 300 resumes. I've spent the last 2 days going through them. You're right. Everyone's overqualified. It makes no sense. I don't even know what I'm reading half the time. And you're the only person that said you're willing to work, where nobody else said they're willing to work. They just said, here's my qualifications. I got that job. Was I an imposter? Yeah, I didn't have a license. Okay, so I was faking it till you make it. Was I transparent with my boss? Absolutely. I was transparent. And then from there, he actually helped me get my license and everything else. And then we had a great relationship, and I could help his business. He could help me as an individual. So things like that, showing up, just because you're faking it till you make it doesn't mean you have to be dishonest to yourself, first of all, or to anybody else out there. Because again, remember, you lose, your clients lose, other creatives lose, other entrepreneurs lose, the industry loses when you show up and you are not being true to anybody else. The last thing on this point is, if you are actually not being transparent and not being truthful to people, this is where imposter syndrome shows up the most. I have actually worked with people and they're like, man, I've just got the worst imposter syndrome. And then I'm like, well, tell me, what is it that's giving you that imposter syndrome? And when we dig deep and we go all the way in, it's actually because they are an imposter, which is somebody that says they are something and they're not. And I remember this one person in particular, they're like, yeah, I'm trying to sell this service and I tell everyone that I do it all the time and I'm charging this much. I'm like, how many times have you sold it? Well, I haven't sold it ever. I'm like, well, why are you telling everyone that you do it all the time? The reason why you're an imposter or you have this feeling right now is because you're literally lying through your teeth to people to try and get their work. And people pick up on that stuff, man. Like, business in 2024 is about transparency and it's about being honest. And if you can do that, everyone wins all the way along, especially you, because you will be surprised how many people are willing to give you a break, willing to help you make your break, willing to give you a chance to prove yourself when you are honest and you're talking to people. I think this is really important. Number 2, when you fake it till you make it, you need to take calculated risks. I've talked to so many successful people about this, and this is really important. They will say yes to the things that they know that they haven't done before, but they are able to do. They know their own limitations and their capabilities. For me, I know that I'm very resourceful. So if I don't know something, I can say yes, but I know that I'm going to get there. For example, if I've never built a website before, I know a lot of design, I actually know a lot of code, I know a lot of platforms and stuff. And if I physically haven't done it before, I can still say, yeah, I can build you a website. I'd probably say I haven't done one before, but I'm going to do one for you right now. I will say yes because I know I'm going to be able to figure it out. It's not going to be a secret to me, okay? But what I won't say yes to is something that's completely foreign to me that I will be in such strife if it doesn't work out, or I just feel like I'm going to be in that deep end. You know when they say like a calculated risk, right? Jump in the pool, but maybe don't jump in the deep end, to learn to swim. Jump in the pool where you can put your feet on the ground, and that way it's going to be so much easier for you to learn. So much easier. If you just jump in the pool, I actually don't know. If you just throw a kid that can't swim into the deep end of the pool, I don't think they're going to be able to swim their way out, I just don't think that's how it works. I think you need to calculate your risk and go, okay, I want to be in the deep end. How do I get there? I'm going to start in the shallow end. I'm going to put my feet on the ground and I'm going to learn the things I need to learn. So get calculated with your risks. Don't just risk it all. Work out what have you done in the past? What's proof that you've done in the past that will correlate to what you want to do now? And then how can you communicate that with your clients and with the people around you and the people that you're charging? So that way everyone's on board and they understand what your capabilities are, your limitations. I think this is really important because if people know that, then there is no problem. You're not going to end up in the deep end where you can't swim and you're in a situation that you can't get yourself out of. Everyone that I know that's super successful, that made their own break, they're self-made, and they faked it till they could make it. They've always followed these steps. They've been transparent with everybody, and they've also taken calculated risks. They've never risked at all, and then lost all their sleep because they're worried that they're going to be caught out. Just be honest with people, man. The next one is develop a growth mindset. Focus on continuous learning and improvement. So important, right? So a lot of the times, we need to understand our competence and incompetence. We need to understand our confidence and our lack of confidence. We need to build through effort and experience. These are really important things. So we need to develop the growth mindset. If you're in a situation right now and you want to go through fake it till you make it, a lot of the times the negative thing that can happen is you think you know everything. And this doesn't work. If you think you know everything, then you won't try to learn anything and you won't ask the right questions. Really important. So when we have a growth mindset, what does that mean? Well, we're always trying to grow. And the only way that you can grow is you've got to know what you don't know. Okay, so if you know that you don't know everything, and there's a lot of room for improvement, then you'll start asking the right questions, you'll go to the right coach, you'll learn the right strategies, you'll seek to understand all the things that you need to understand to get really successful at what you need to do. So you're going to be in that growth. This is really important because remember, there's two parts to fake it till you make it. Fake it and make it. All right. So you might be out there all the time just faking it, telling everyone that you can do things that you can't, charging people what you shouldn't be charging, and taking people's money, or faking it all the time. But remember, you got to cross over to the make it. The make it To be able to make it, you need to actually know the strategies. You need to actually know what you're doing. You need to actually be able to deliver value. You need to be able to create value. You need to be able to grow into that person. And so if you're always faking it, you're not going to be in that growth mindset. You're going to be in a fixed mindset where you think that you already know, and you don't want anyone to know that you don't know. Honestly, I see sometimes, like if I'm teaching a workshop or something, people won't put their hand up to ask a question because they don't want to look silly, like they don't know the question. And then they're sitting there as an imposter, instead of being inquisitive and just going like, hey, look, I don't know. And I would love to learn that, to be honest. And I always say, like, there's no silly questions. The sillier, the better. Like, please ask those questions because there's someone in this room that's just too scared to share. And it's important for you to ask the question, because otherwise you're going to hold yourself back. You're going to be in the fake it zone forever and you're never going to make it, right? And this is all about making your break right now. Next up is seek support. You got to surround yourself with mentors, with peers, with a supportive community of people that can provide guidance, feedback, and encouragement and confidence and everything else that you need as an entrepreneur. If you don't do this, it's going to be really hard, but you won't be able to do this properly if you're faking it to everybody and you're being an imposter. If you're telling people that you're good at something, or you've got big contacts and you've done big things and you made big money and the lies go on, people know when someone's being genuine or not. Even if you think that you've fooled everybody, honestly, you won't attract people into your ecosystem that are actually successful people that you need. You're going to attract other imposters. So it's really important that you have that radar going all the time and you seek out the people around you. Like, are they an imposter, or is it someone genuine? Are they just trying to find a connection with you, or, and use you for something? Or are they a real person with positive impact to your life right now? And you need to be that for somebody else as well. So seek support and ask for help. Talk to these people. There's so many amazing people out there that have done so many things. And you literally need to be surrounded by these people. And if you are not surrounded by these people, you don't know what's possible. You're in the wrong groups, wrong conversations you're having all the time. Like, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was standing down there. I was like next to the park, and there was a few people there at the park, and they all had like brown paper bags, and they're drinking beer out of their bottles or whatever. And they look like they've been in the park for a few days, sort of thing. I'm not judging here, but they were having this big conversation. I could hear a few things that they were saying. But I was thinking about it. I was like, if I was standing there with them and I had that bottle and I was drinking with them, I wonder what the conversation would be, and I wonder where that would get me. And you probably already know where it's going to get you and what the conversation is, right? And then I look over and it could be a couple of my friends that are millionaires. Like, what are the conversations that they're having, and where would that get me? And imagine if you're sitting in a room with some billionaires, what would the conversation be? So the people that you surround yourself is really important, but you need to be equally as an amazing person for people to be wanting to surround themselves with you as well. A lot of the times people say, like, only surround yourself with the 5 best people. I'm like, man, you better be one of those 5 people that you would surround yourself with. Okay. I think this is some like hard love here, but like, do you bring value to people? Are you lying to people? Are you trying to fake it till you make it? Or are you being transparent? Are you being honest? Are you asking for help? Are you bringing support to others? Are you being transparent? Are you, all these things. And if you are, you're going to attract those same people, and they're going to support you and they're going to help you just as you're going to help them as well. And number 5, this is the last one. Just because you don't need formal training or education for a lot of careers that we have out here at the moment, like people say this all the time. I'm a photographer. I don't need to go to university. I'm an artist. I don't need to learn something, whatever it is. Just because you don't need formal training or education doesn't mean you don't need to be educated. I want to say this one more time. Just because you don't need a formal education and training, it doesn't mean you don't need to be educated. I've seen so many people out there and they say like, well, I can just make it all by myself. I don't need anything. And they never go and learn all the strategies. They never learn from someone else. They never learn from a coach. They never do a course. They never read a book. They never listen to a podcast. In fact, I was talking to a colleague of mine the other day, and he was talking about how he's going to do all these big things and everything. And I said, what's the last book you read that was on this subject? And there was nothing, right? We are in this mentality right now is we think because we don't have to get a huge bill, because we're not surgeons, because we're not doctors, because we're not lawyers, We don't need to go and get this big bill and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on education. I would actually not lie. I would actually say sometimes you need to spend more money on education. For me, I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my education with coaches or with mentors or with courses or whatever it is. Because I need to, man. Like, yes, I don't need to sit in the classroom, go to university and do the things how other people do it, but I still need to be educated and I still need to learn the things that I need to learn to get me to where I need to be. Otherwise, I'm not going to progress and go up through the levels. Now, it's naive to think that we know everything, we don't need to learn anything. And I actually seen the other day in a Facebook group, someone posted my actual course and said, should you join the six-figure business now if you're a photographer? And there was about like 90 answers. And the majority of them was like, you don't need to learn anything as a photographer. Don't worry about it. Just go out there and shoot and then start charging to people. And the advice like that, I don't know where all this advice comes from, but people are telling each other not to educate themselves, not to learn, not to immerse themselves into the very thing that they want to learn, not to have the best chance possible, and just to go out there and take people's money and don't learn the things. Now, you still need to be educated, man. Like, it's so important. Listen to the books. Listen to the podcast, watch YouTube, buy the courses, listen to the coaches, sign up to the mentors, whatever it has to be for you to become the best version of yourself where you know you're not going to be an imposter. Because if anyone pays you money, man, it's the best money they've ever spent. And that's where you need to get to with your business. And that's when you'll finally make it and you will stop faking it. Now, that is pretty much it for me for this episode. I hope this brought you some clarity. I know this might be triggering for some people, for sure. And I know a lot of people, it can be really hard when you're just trying to make it and you got to navigate through a lot of these things. And for me, it was really hard, for sure. I don't want to bring anyone down, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't fake it till you make it. I'm saying that there is a right way and there's a wrong way. And if you do it the wrong way, still no judgment from me because, I've done things that I'm not proud of. But the quicker that you find your North Star and you start turning your ship towards a way that's more sustainable and the way that you want to run your business, and hopefully you want to do that with integrity and with care and with love and everything else, I think the quicker you can get super successful. Actually, I'm going to give you one last one. This is funny. Number 6. I'm going to give you one last one. Sorry, guys. You're listening to this and you're like, John's about to wrap it up. It's going to give me one last one. Number 6, whatever craft that you're in, obsess over learning that craft. Obsess over the craft. Be incredible at the craft. I think this is really important. You know how many educators go out there and they've never actually learnt how to, coach or how to speak or public speak or how to craft, something out there for someone to learn? Or do you know how many photographers out there that are like, I can start charging now and I don't even know how to use my camera properly? Like, that's a cool bragging thing, sure, to you though, but not to your clients. Like, your clients are devastated. Think about it. The more that you obsess over your craft, the quicker you're going to get through the imposter syndrome. And sometimes, like, when we're an imposter, we start saying really silly things like, I just don't really like tech stuff. That's why I'm not learning how to use my camera. I just don't like tech stuff. I just don't really like gear. That's why I'm not learning this. I just don't really like making money. That's why I don't like money, That's why I don't want to join a six-figure business now. I just don't really like... And we always put up these excuses of what we don't like, and we mask the things that we are inadequate in instead of going, you know what? Hey, I don't love gear either, but I need to learn that camera because my clients are... they're leaning on me to provide them with an incredible service and an incredible product, okay? They paid me the money. I want to show up and I want to do the best job possible. So if I'm a podcaster, for instance, and I don't exponentially get better and better each season with my podcast, after a while, you're like, well, what are you doing, man? Like, you're not really a podcaster. This is horrible. If you go back and listen to my first ever episode, it's atrocious. Like, there's no way I could listen to that. Just the way that I speak and everything else. And I got a lot of bad reviews back then because people were like, whoa, this is terrible. But for me, I was transparent with everybody. I'm like, I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a public speaker. I couldn't read until I was about 20 years old. This is me. And I'm getting better and better with every episode. So thank you for showing up. And I cannot wait for episode 300 when you can finally listen and you don't have to turn it off all the time. Okay? So bring people on the journey. Like, the more transparent you are that way, the easier it is to make it. And I'm here to help you make your break. So let's obsess over our actual craft, get good at that, and follow those other 5 steps. Thanks for listening to Jai Long and Make Your Break. Share this on social media if you feel like there was something that resonated with you, or if you want to hear other people, if you want other people in the industry to hear this episode, please do. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.